Kiddushin Daf Yomi Kiddushin and the top of Amud Bet. It's not about the money. Xalipin Itnu בפחות משווה פרוטה. The challenge in the Matmonim is to zoom into one essential element of the sugya, one really fundamental element of the sugya, and to gain some insight and wisdom from that. And what we'll understand is the difference between currency and commodity, and we'll even understand, is cryptocurrency something we should be taking seriously, or is it like NFT, like non-fungible tokens, like this mishugas of intangible objects that people were selling for thousands and thousands and more of dollars, and it's just nothing. Is cryptocurrency also nothing? Or is cryptocurrency something of value? Now, would you believe that we'll get an insight into that from the Gemara in Kiddushin? We'll be able to learn about the value of cryptocurrency and other such things. Let's see. Firstly, to understand the sugya, what we need to understand, and the whole Masechta, we're going to have to understand the idea of a Kenyan. A Kenyan is the definition of the moment from which a transaction becomes irreversible from a unilateral perspective. Where two people are transacting, there's a point at which none of the parties can unilaterally retract from the deal. What is that moment? That's what Kenyan defines. That's what Kenyan means, the moment of transaction, the moment of acquisition. And there are various different kinds of Kenyanim. So one Kenyan is kesef. There are situations where the moment is defined by the payment made. And even if you don't make the payment in full, even if you only pay a pruta, which is the smallest unit of kesef, the smallest unit of currency, even if you just give a cent as your initial payment, that could be the Kenyan, and from that moment onwards, neither party can retract. And we know there's a Kenyan of Hagbah where you lift the object up. From that moment, when the buyer lifts the object up, that moment it becomes irretractable. There's Meshicha, if it's an animal, you can draw the animal, move the animal, and that becomes a Kenyan. And then there's a Kenyan called Khalipin. Khalipin means if you have a Jaguar in London, and I have a Cadillac in New York, and we're both in New York, and you're going to go and live in New York, and I'm going to go and live in London. So we decide to do a swap. I'll give you my Cadillac, you'll give me your Jaguar. I'll drive your Jaguar in London, you'll drive my Cadillac in New York, it'll be yours. Now, I don't want to have to go to London to do a Kenyan on the Jaguar, so we have a Kenyan Khalipin. Let's do a Kenyan. You do a Kenyan in my Cadillac, drive my Cadillac around the block, and you've done a Kenyan in the Cadillac. From that moment, the Jaguar is also mine. Although I'm not doing anything with the Jaguar, I'm not touching that object, you can do a Kenyan from a distance. Both with Kenyan Kesef, I can pay you for something and then the object becomes mine even though I'm not touching the object. Or a Kenyan Khalipin, where I can give you my object and you give me your object and we only do a Kenyan in one of the objects. That's the foundation also of the Kenyan Sudar. The Kenyan Sudar is where it's just a token. That's like when we sell chometz, for example, and I give you a handkerchief, for example, for those who still remember what handkerchiefs were. I give you a handkerchief, you lift up the handkerchief, and that's as if I've given you the handkerchief in return for the object you're selling me, and so the Kenyan is done. Kenyan Sudar is, according to most Rishonim, is a subsection of Kenyan Khalipin. So here comes the issue. Can you use a Kenyan Khalipin for Kiddushin? When you give a woman a ring under the Chupah, are you giving her currency or are you giving her a commodity? Is it a ring or is it the value of the ring? What's actually happening? And if it's just the value, if you're giving a commodity that has a certain value, what would happen if instead of a ring, you gave her a Renoir painting? Would that work under the Chupah? These are the things that we look at in the sugya. Says the Gemara on Daf Gimel Amud Aleph, our Mishnah says there are three Kenyanim that work for Kiddushin. Ask the Gemara, why say three? Just list the three. Why give it a number? So it comes to tell you three and only three. What might I have thought could be a fourth one? Fourth possibility could be Chupah, according to Rav Huna, because Rav Huna holds that Chupah can also be a Kenyan, and maybe what the Mishnah is telling us is no, there are only three, you can't use Chupah at all. So according to Rav Huna Damachupa Koine Mikavachomer Limute, what else could it be excluding? Limute Khalipin. The number three in the Mishnah comes to tell you it's these three Kenyanim, one of which is kesef, one of which is currency, but not Khalipin, not commodity. I might have thought that just as property can be acquired with commodity exchange, I can give you a renoir, and with that, because a renoir is a commodity, I can give you my renoir, or I can give you a bag of flour, or I can give you a bar of gold, and with that I can be koneh your karka, I can acquire your land. So I might have thought in the same way, since we learned from Sedei Ephron that a woman also, you can acquire the rights to a wife by using a commodity. Kamash Malan, it comes to tell us no. Not Khalipin, it's got to be Kesef. Ask the Gemara, Ve'ema achinami. And why not Khalipin? At the end of the day, a ren was worth more than a gold coin, than a gold ring. The gold ring is worth $500 or $200. The ren was worth $50 million. Why can't he give her a renoir for Kiddushin instead of giving her a ring? Khalipin itnu בפחות משווה פרוטה. You write, says the Gemara, that you could find a renoir, which is a commodity worth $50 million. But you could also have a commodity that's not even worth a pruta. You could have a grain of rice, it's also a commodity. And it works for Khalipin. There's no requirement that Khalipin needs to be a minimum value. The grain of rice wouldn't work for Khalipin, but an object that is not worth a pruta, a kli, some kind of an object that has a use, but is not worth a pruta, is still usable for Khalipin. Ve'isha בפחות משווה פרוטה לא מקניה נפשה. And no respectable woman would give herself away to a man for something worth less than a pruta. That's what the Gemara says. Explains Rashi, why? Deganayhula. This is an important Rashi. It's from this Rashi that we're going to get the whole philosophy of this Kenyan and why it doesn't work for Kiddushin. Deganayhula, because it's humiliating for her to accept something that's worth less than a pruta. Hilkach batil la letorat Khalipin b'Kiddushin. And therefore, since theoretically Khalipin could be affected with something worth less than a pruta, it's an insult to her to use Khalipin for the Kenyan, even if it's a renoir that's worth $50 million, you still can't use it, it's still humiliating. If he uses the word Khalipin. Khalipin means exchange. Khalipin means barter. Are you suggesting that I'm worth $50 million to you, that's all? Is there a number? Are you putting a quantitative number on our love and what I mean to you? Don't use the word Khalipin, because Khalipin means this for that. I'm giving you this so that you give me your commitment in marriage, as we discussed yesterday what a marriage is. Ad deyayivla betorat lashon kinyan or kicha or kiddushin. It's fine to use a renoir, says Rashi. It's fine to use a diamond. It's fine to use an antique piece of furniture, as long as you say to her, I'm giving this to you as kesef. I'm giving you the value inherent in the renoir. I'm giving you the value inherent in the antique piece of furniture or in the diamond. I'm not exchanging a diamond for your love. I'm giving you the value. What's the difference? Why should that make a difference? Why is that any better for her dignity? We'll come back to that in a moment. Tosfos Rabbeinu Tam, Rashi's grandson, launches into 4 attacks on his grandfather. 4 attacks, 4 questions Tosfos asks on Rashi, and all the Rishonim ask variations of these 4 kashas. And then Rabbeinu Tam says, therefore it would appear that the right wording in the Gemara should be without the word nafsha. In other words, that would then read, Ve'isha befachot mishave pruta lo mekanya. Less than a pruta worth of value doesn't work in Kiddushin. Not because it's an insult to her or it's humiliating for her. It's got nothing to do with her. This is not about a subjective value that she places on it. This is about the mechanics of the Kenyan. And Rabbeinu Tam comes to the conclusion that this is what the Gemara is discussing. The Gemara is suggesting maybe in Khalipin is a form of kesef. What do we know? I've got to acquire a woman with kesef. Kesef, money, currency, is one of the forms of Kenyan. What about a renoir or a diamond that's worth $10 million? Is that considered like kesef? I'm giving you $10 million worth of diamond. Is that okay? Says Tosfos, explaining the Gemara, that the Gemara originally thought maybe that would be okay because currency doesn't mean a dollar bill. Currency doesn't mean a gold coin. Currency means value. And if there's value in the renoir, that's good. No, says explains Rabbeinu Tam at the end, we come to the conclusion, since Chalipin can work even if it has no value, it's just a sentimental object that nobody would pay for, nobody would buy. That could work for Chalipin, therefore it can't work by Kiddushin, because it's clearly not kesef. So again, kesef, currency as a Kenyan, works only if it's a minimum of a pruta. If it's less than a pruta, if it doesn't have market value, if it doesn't have commercial value of a pruta, it's not currency. Chalipin works even if it's less than a pruta. Says Tosfot, therefore you see Chalipin is a different Kenyan. It's not Kenyan kesef. It's a different mechanism. And when the Torah says you can acquire a woman with kesef, it means currency. It doesn't mean Chalipin. Now let's go back to Rashi and zoom in on Rashi. I've brought you there in the sources, the Ritvo and the Rashbo and the Ran on the Rif. Also there's the Tosfos Harosh that all resolve the Girsa. They say you don't have to change the wording in the Gemara, but you can still learn like Rabbeinu Tam. The important difference between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam is that Rashi says Chalipin is a variation of kesef. Where you are koneh, where you acquire something with money, with currency, it really means value. And that value can be in a gold coin, or that value can be in a renoir or an antique piece of furniture or a diamond. As long as you're using the value and not the object. And that depends on your intention and your articulation, says Rashi. Don't articulate the word Chalipin because that's an insult. But if you articulate the word kesef, that's not an insult, and we'll understand why in a moment. Rabbeinu Tam says, no, there are two different Kenyanim. There's kesef and there's Chalipin. They work differently. The one can be with less than a pruta, the one cannot be with less than a pruta. The one works for Kiddushin and the other one doesn't work for Kiddushin. And again, we can spend a week on all the variations of these reasonings, but let's focus on Rashi, because I believe in understanding Rashi, we get to the essence of this piece of Gemara, and then there branches out from that. But the fundamental philosophic understanding of the difference between currency and commodity, we'll understand through the Rashi. So what is the difference between currency and commodity? Why does Rashi say that really the Kenyan is the value? If I'm giving you a gold coin worth $100, it's the value of $100 that I'm using for the Kenyan. If I give you a diamond worth $1,000, it's the $1,000 of value that I'm using. But don't use the word Chalipin, that won't work. Tosfos goes further and says it's got nothing to do with the words you use. You can't use commodity. It has to be kesef, it has to be currency. What's the difference between currency and commodity in this respect? And I would suggest the difference between currency and commodity we learn from Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech says in Kohelet, you'll have it at the end of the source sheet, Lischok osim lechem. If you want to have a party, you bring food, you get the caterers in. V'yayin yesamach chayim. And if a person's healthy, he enjoys a drink. A person who's not healthy shouldn't have a drink. A person's healthy, so it's only for the healthy. And bread, food is for having a party, having a good time. But hakesef, yaneh et hakol. But money works for everybody. Whether you're partying or you're not, whether you're happy or you're sad, whether you're healthy or you're sick, money is good for everybody. To give a person who's sad, to organize a party for him, that doesn't make him happy. To take somebody who's ill and bring him a bottle of Blue Label Scotch whiskey, that doesn't make him feel better. He can't have it. But to give people money, that's always welcome. Money works for everything because money gives you freedom. Money enables you to invest. Money, there is an element of infinity to money. And we see that in another posuk in Kohelet. Shlomo HaMelech understood value, he understood money. Ohev kesef lo yispa kesef. If one loves money, you can never have enough of it. Now that's not the same with commodities. If I say, I'm giving you a bag of flour, you say, thanks, that's great of you. I said, look, if you like bags of flour, I'm going to deliver to your house 25 tons of flour. What would you say? No, thank you. I'll give you a renoir. And I'll say, you know what, you like this renoir? I'll give you another 25 renoirs exactly the same. You'll say, but that destroys the whole value of the renoir. When it comes to commodities, there's a limit to the quantity. With kesef, there is no limit to the quantity. How much money do you want? As much as you'll give me. And what can I do with that money? I can invest it. And how much could that money generate in an investment? Unlimited amounts of money over a period of time. How many renoirs can one renoir make? 0. How many diamonds can one diamond make? 0. And even if you have 2 diamonds and you try and breed them, 0. But money, you invest money, and it grows, and it grows, and it grows. And Rashi and the Medrash bring that this applies not just to money, it's to anything you really love that is infinite. The same applies to Torah. How much Torah do you want? More and more and infinite. And one Torah idea generates other ideas. Torah is like money, the Medrash says. Oyev kesef lo yisba kesef, oyev Torah lo yisba Torah. There's an element of infinity in money. And what does the word kesef mean? It comes from the word lichsof, to yearn for. So when I give the woman under the Chupah, I give her kesef. What am I saying? You are of unlimited value to me. I yearn to be together with you. That's what kesef means. I'm giving you, it's only a pruta, or it's only $1, or it's only a gold ring. That's what I can manage at the moment. But I'm investing in this in you, because when you invest currency in a person or in an investment, its potential is unlimited, and I believe your potential is unlimited. I believe in you. That's why I'm investing in you. When you invest, if you want to invest in somebody's business, you don't take them a renwa. You don't take them a piece of antique furniture. If you want to buy shares on the stock exchange, you don't take them a painting or a piece of furniture, you take them cash. And you invest money. That's what I'm doing. I'm not exchanging you for a renwa or for an antique piece of furniture or for a diamond. I'm investing money because money is kisuf, money is yearning. It's yearning for the infinite. Oyev kesef lo yisba kesef. I'll never have enough of you, my darling. That's why I'm giving you money, because that's what money represents. That's what kesef represents. And whereas some people see kesef as something that is tainted and what, oh, she's buying her for money, is that what it's about? No, it's not about money. It's about what money represents. Money is about value. So currency is only value. According to Rashi, a renwa has value and it is a commodity. And as long as you relate to the value in the renwa, it works. According to Tosfos, a renwa is a commodity. If you want value, use money. That's what currency is. Currency is value. So now what happens if I use an NFT renwa? If I create a renwa which is non-fungible, an intangible thing on the internet, I say this is a renwa and it's worth $100,000. That's nonsense. It's a commodity. A commodity has to be tangible. What happens if I say this currency, which you can't see and touch, it's worth $100, it's cryptocurrency? That's okay. Because currency is about value, it's not a commodity. If we understand Rabbeinu Tam, and especially using Rashi as the way to get into the thinking of the Rishonim, then we understand currency is intangible. And we see that in the development of currency. It started off with gold coins. Then it became a note of paper that is a document that represents gold which is held by the government. Then it became a note of paper that represents value that isn't held by anybody. And then it became cryptocurrency that represents value that doesn't even exist. It's okay, because we're dealing with the intangible. And that's why she is mekanya nafshe lekesef. She's willing to give herself for money because money is intangible, and as such it's not measurable, it's not defined, and it's not limited. She's giving herself for a concept that is limitless. That she's willing to do. But Khalipin is a commodity, and a commodity is limited. A commodity is defined. That she's not willing to do. Says Rashi, yes, in an object there is value, and you can relate to the value in the object and tell her that's what you're marrying her with, and she's happy with that. Says Tosfos, no, if you're using a commodity, it doesn't work altogether. For Kiddushin to be effective, there's a necessity for it to be an intangible piece of currency. It's got to be something that represents value. Kisuf, the idea of yearning, the idea of lo yispa kesef, of never having sufficient kesef, that's the idea that there is, and for that, she's willing to give herself and to be makneh herself, to give herself away in marriage.